Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. Thought I'd come on here quickly to talk a bit about reassurance and why in the Facebook groups we're so strict about it. Well, the problem with reassurance is it's a vicious cycle that's always going to end up with the person being stuck. It's never going to bring relief. It's never going to bring long-term relief. But people often think it does because they've got so used to it as a mechanism for getting better that when it isn't, or just on a short term because it worked for them and gave them relief, they don't want to give it up. It's like giving someone a short-term drug like a benzo. They take it and they think, bloody hell, this is one of the best drugs I've ever taken. But little do they realise it becomes very addictive. And reassurance is like that, except it drip feeds you a sort of crapper sort of relief all the time. At first you might get a few days, then you get a few hours, then you get a few seconds, and then it's barely even there. And it's forums and Facebook groups for years have always been full of reassurance. When I used to be in these groups, you just go in and there were places just full of negativity all the time, places just full of reassurance. So with our Facebook group, I wanted to make sure that it was definitely not a place for reassurance. I wanted to make sure that was the first thing that was covered. And then the next thing was that people realized it was a place where they could actually get better. So it was a place where OCD recovery wasn't some myth, something that nobody understands how to do and barely anyone achieves. It was something that people did achieve, and it just took practice and work and they would get there. And I wanted to create a community which was sort of positive and going in that direction, because far too often those other groups is just a negative cycle where it just goes from person to person saying things like, I've been stuck for X amount of years. Oh my God, how long have you been stuck? I've been stuck for twice as long and I had this. Oh my God, poor you. What about this? And then, oh my God, that's so terrible. I had that as well. I feel for you. Why don't you message me and then we can speak about it together? That is an absolute disaster because you've got people meeting up with each other that have got no new knowledge to help improve things at all. And they're just going around repeating the same cycle. When they're not in the group, it's even worse because then there's no reassurance being monitored and they just go and see the friend that they've just met and then continue the reassurance cycle, continue the chasing of, did you have this, did you have that, I had this, you had that, and it's a disaster. So we really don't want that going on. That happens all the time, and you see it in comments in social media. You see it in those groups. You see it in group calls if it's not moderated, and you've got to be pretty firm with it. It's the same as how parents have to help with getting OCD sufferers better. Parents can't be sort of relaxed saying, here, have a bit of reassurance each day. That's going to be absolute disaster again. They've got to come from a compassionate position where they're caring and compassionate for the family member or the daughter or the son or the husband or whatever that's got OCD, but at the same time they need to come with a pretty tough love stance, because if they don't do that, OCD suffering is a bit like your drug is certainty. You're trying to chase that, right? So you're trying to chase the certainty, and to do that, what you do is you go through this reassurance cycle. And so people will chase that, really seriously, and they're not going to cut down. So they'll be around their family and they'll be going for it. Even if they've had a session with a therapist saying, you must stop this, they'll think, oh my God, this one time it's different. This one time it's a very different situation. I must act now. I must get it now, and so on. And that's always what happens. It's just a vicious cycle of that. So we have to be very serious about reassurance and realize, look, this is not going to get us better, and we do not want a community where it's all based on that, because that's what people are going into those communities for. People sometimes come into the Facebook group I run and say, oh, I didn't find this very helpful, and then you look at what they were doing, they were looking for reassurance, whereas people who are in there, 90% of the people, say they find it very helpful because it's different to the other groups where it was all of that. So we have to be strict with that, and I think that's very important. And it's so easy to get into a reassurance cycle if you're a parent, because if someone comes to you and says, look, I'm really scared of such and such, your natural reaction is going to be to comfort them, which will be a reassurance sort of comforting cycle. To do the opposite and say, hey, have you thought about changing your philosophies on life in relation to this, that and the other and all the other stuff that goes into OCD recovery, is not going to happen from a parent, but it's going to happen from us. So that's what we do and that's what we work on. So I think what I wanted to touch on, actually I won't go into questions and answers today because I wanted to really focus on this topic. I think the way you want to approach OCD recovery is you want to always ask yourself, are you trying to get a chase of some feeling? Are you trying to comfort yourself in some instant way now? Are you trying to get away from some kind of sensation? Is there something that's causing you that you're trying to get from the person to silence that feeling? And there's so many versions of this. People will often go to their parents and say, "Mum, can you tell me this thing about the universe? Can you tell me that, about that?" As if they're a god. They're not a god. They can give you the wrong information. They don't even know. And there's no certainty. So what you're actually going for feels like you're getting certainty because you've chased it since a kid. But in reality, your mum doesn't know. Your mum isn't a god. And so it's just like going and asking her what time did the football match start in 1972 off the spot and taking her answer as gospel truth. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to do that. So you really have to be strict with it. You've got to stick to that plan. I'm not going to ask for reassurance. I'm going to be firm on this, and I know it's in my best interest. I know it's going to make me anxious in the short term. I know I'm going to get more anxious, and I'm going to find this difficult at times. But I am not going to be stuck like this for long term, because I can't be held captive by OCD in this sort of torturous cycle, being drip-fed reassurance by OCD, because it's never going to bring me relief like that. And that is so key to our recovery. So we really have to think about that. We have to think, right, this is my new life from today. That reassurance life is gone. And this is my new life. This is what I'm on. This is what I'm doing. And I think that's the message that I always want to set with the Facebook groups that we ran and all the group calls and everything, is that's what it's about. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging to drop that drug of certainty chasing, but it is so worth it, because that drug is so crap. It gives OCD all the power. It's bargaining with OCD for saying to OCD, please, can you give me relief on your terms? And I know every other time you've given me a shit deal. And so that's what's so important, to see that and to spot that OCD is never delivering on its bargain. It shows you an offer. It says, this offer, if you take it, you're going to get relief. And then it never delivers relief. And you keep going back and you keep chasing, and it keeps giving you the same terms. It says, if you just do this one thing, you're free. And it never is. So you need to remember that is how it's operating. What else did I want to say about that? I don't think so. I think just making yourself aware of it. Being aware that it's one of the first steps to OCD recovery, really crucial. That and cutting out avoidance and cutting out other compulsions, learning to see those and doing that. I'll cover the other areas that are good points to look at in the beginning part of recovery. But reassurance, people, even when they're working through things quite a long term, they still go back to it, because it's a drug you remember brought you relief in the past. And so you have to remember that doorway, that path doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't bring the relief it might have brought you in the past, where you got a result from a medical test or something like that. If you have health OCD and that brought you relief in the past, it's not going to bring you relief the same as it did before. So it's really important to remember that. All right, guys, I will see you on the next Instagram Live. I just wanted to cover reassurance because it's a hot topic at the moment on social media in relation to, well, when I say hot topic, it's a topic that people often ask a lot of questions about. Can I get reassurance? Is a little bit of reassurance okay? And I saw it coming up in quite a lot of questions, so I thought now is the time to really remind people of the importance of that. Guys, I will see you back on our next Instagram Live soon, where I'll be covering different topics, and I'll speak to you then. See you later.